It seems that the retrumptycans are up in arms over the expulsion of George Santos, crying like a child who has skinned their knee. But the truth be told, they are just nervous. Let us start with the basics. What does the Constitution say about this? Well, in Section 5 it states, "Each house shall be the judge of the elections, returns, and qualifications of its own members. Each house may determine the rules of its proceedings, punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3 expel a member." What does the House of Representatives' own rules state? Well, there is this from the House Ethics Manual, the spirit and the letter of the rules. A member, delegate, resident commissioner, officer, or employee of the House shall adhere to the spirit and the letter of the rules of the House and to the rules of duly constituted committees thereof. House Rule 23, Clause 2, provides that members, officers, and employees shall adhere to the spirit and the letter of House and committee rules. The Select Committee on Standards of Official Conduct of the 90th Congress recommended this provision in part to emphasize the importance of the precedents of decorum and consideration that have evolved in the House over the years. Further into the House Ethics Manual we find Code of Ethics for Government Service. The Code of Ethics for Government Service articulates broad ethical guidelines for all government employees, including office holders. The 85th Congress adopted this code in 1958. Among other things, the code stresses that any person in government service should adhere to the highest moral principles, give a full day's labor for a full day's pay, never discriminate unfairly by dispensing special favors, never accept favors or benefits that might be construed as influencing the performance of governmental duties, make no private promises binding on the duties of office, engage in no business with the government inconsistent with the performance of governmental duties, never use information received confidentially in the performance of governmental duties for making private profit, uphold the Constitution, laws, and legal regulations of the United States and of all governments therein, and never be a party to their evasion. A quick side note before I continue: is your member of the House a moral and ethical person? Have you looked into their financial dealings lately? The Code of Ethics for Government Service was adopted as a concurrent resolution, expressing the sense of Congress rather than as a statute. This committee has concluded, however, that the ethical precepts set forth in this code represent continuing traditional standards of ethical conduct to be observed by members of the House at all times. So expelling George Santos is not a question of if he is guilty of any criminal activity. It is a question of, does he have any ethics, and does he adhere to the highest moral principles? Now, what about House Resolution 878, providing for the expulsion of Representative George Santos? Representative Michael Guest could just as easily left out any mention or reference to any of George Santos's criminal indictments and simply have kept to the ethics violations. So what about some of the crybabies who, if I was in charge, may very well be next on the chopping block? Representative Troy Nails of Texas stated, "Kicking out Mr. Santos is setting a very dangerous precedent. Never before has Congress expelled a member based on indictments." Well, Mr. Nails, the American people do not care about indictments. When it comes to our governmental leaders, we demand people who will stand for what is ethical and moral. And if you believe that lying and cheating are attributes worthy of a member of Congress, then maybe you do not belong in Congress. Representative Byron Donalds of Florida summarized, "Precedent, it changes the very nature of by which this institution is supposed to function. We've been lectured politically for the last years, a lot of it in the press, about our institutions. What happened here today goes against the principles of our institutions. It does, and people can say whatever they want. Oh, it's OnlyFans, it's this, it's that, it's bigger than what he was accused of. Of my angst is not about what George was accused of. It's not because I'm not defending it, it is about the process upon which he was expelled today. That is my concern." Now, as for Byron Donalds, he needs to crack open a dictionary. And how does expelling George Santos go against the principles of the House of Representatives? Will you please show me that on paper? Ethics has nothing to do with legality or with criminal prosecution. I, for one, want my members of Congress to be above reproach. And if they fail, that I want them thrown out. And if Donalds believes behaving like Santos is legitimate, then he should be dismissed also because he has questionable ethics and morals. Representative Mike Johnson of Louisiana expressed real reservations about the motion to expel Santos, citing the precedent it would set given that Santos hasn't been convicted of a crime. Well, Mr. Johnson, maybe a precedent needs to be set. I will remind you also, Mr. Johnson, ethics and morals have nothing to do with criminal prosecutions, period. Maybe it is time for you folks up there on that golden hill to stop raking in the luxuries at the expense of us regular citizens. As our speaker, maybe you should start cleaning house, or are you too much of a wimp and whipped by your massa? Yes, folks, MAGA Mike is nothing more than a slave to either Trumpty, the Heritage Foundation, or some other puppet master. I could go on and on, but every retrumptycan who voted no, stating they simply wanted to wait it out until the legal system prevailed, is only trying to cover their backsides. They all know they have dozens of skeletons just waiting to burst from the closet and send them all packing. I hope that George Santos follows through with his claim to expose everyone's dirty laundry. Now, Representative Michael Guest, why don't you gather up some FBI guys, some IRS guys, and some SEC guys and just go down the list and investigate every member of the House? Because I, for one, am sick of hearing about rich members of Congress getting loans forgiven while the rest of America struggles. Is that not unethical? Or who are you afraid of? If members of the House are free from guilt and proud of their work, then they should welcome an open and thorough audit of their behind-the-doors activities.